Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Hey, y'all. It is game week. It's Peach Bowl week. I'm fired up. I mean, we've been talking about this thing for how many weeks? It's just been nuts, actually trying to prognosticate and keep ourselves entertained. But now we got the real deal. Jake Rowe, Palmer Toms. What's going on in Atlanta? Well, what have y'all learned this week?
I've learned that my initial plan of driving in and out every day is not going to work. I've learned that.
Where are you right now?
I'm at home. I'm in Jefferson, Georgia. I drove in to Atlanta left about 5:50 this morning. Picked PT up and we went to the old Weston Peachtree Plaza and did some interviews and stuff. And then I got out of there about, 4:30 or so. And didn't get home till about 6:30 or so, 6:45 or so, 7 o'clock. I don't know when I got home. I just know that it took me about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2.5 hours to get home. It was a good, 3:45 on the road today. I'm not going to do that again tomorrow.
So what are y'all going to do now?
We're going to. There's cardboard. There's a lot of it, and no, we're just going to stay at the media hotel.
We're going to stay on the street with the guy that I hear drumming outside.
Well, does he like Georgia or Ohio State? That's really all that matters.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point.
Palmer,
is he a DawgsHQ man or a Letterman Row guy?
Yeah, well, we got plenty of that. I'm Wes Blankenship. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all hit subscribe if you don't do it already. I believe we got the comment section for subscribers only right now, but that's okay. Just hit subscribe and you can comment and mix it up, throw elbows with everybody in the comment section. Guys, the big story today, of course, I don't know if it's the big story, but you know how the internet is and how social media is. All anyone cares about is Will Muschamp and his recollection of that 93 Citrus Bowl and seeing Kirk Herbstreit. I guess he just threw a duck in the hotel banquet room before they had their game at some little team mixer. And that he said that's all he needed to see to know that Georgia had a shot to win the game.
Well, yeah, Muscham's fun, man. He's fun.
Will is fun. He definitely is fun. Hearing from him today was important. But I saw a video of Herbstreit firing back, trying to defend himself a little bit. Saying that it was one of those glossy white signature footballs that he kind of didn't have a great grip and had to shot put it. We'll have to hear from him later in the week. Maybe talk to his son at media days. Walk on tight end for Ohio State.
It's funny how it's funny that something like this would get brought up 29 years after the fact. Palmer was not born yet. Covered an event before his conception and arrival into the earth. It's just incredible. It's just what football does for us. But I thought Will Muschamp was even just as funny. I wouldn't say even funnier, but just as funny when he was asked about that game, and he was kind of asked about like, hey. How much different is the game now? And he was like, dude, they were two back, Robert Smith. And, when they wanted to get exotic, they would line up in twins, which, if you're not, familiar, it just means two wide receivers to one side of the field. Would just really crack me up. I mean, he was a lot of fun today, really insightful. Glenn Schumann, you can tell how these guys, even though all these Nick Saban and Kirby Smart guys, they've all kind of got their own personality, and they don't all have to act like robots. And Will Muschamp, who I believe Nick Saban is on record as saying maybe his favorite or top or most, it's the assistant coach he most enjoyed coaching with, whatever. He said that at one point. It may be different now, but Will Muschamp's definitely, maybe it's the head coaching roles, whatever. He's definitely developed a lot of personality. It's the first time I've ever had a chance to talk to him since I went around during the preseason. But I found our time with him probably the best of any interview session we've had all season.
Yeah, he was good. Definitely insightful. Talked to him about Malachi, talked to him about the development of this defense. And you're right, Jake. I mean, I think if you look at the personalities, it's really interesting how they make it work with this group. Listening to Chris Smith, he talked about all the different voices that are in his head. Got Kirby, who played his position, obviously the head coach. He's got co-defensive coordinator Schumann and Muschamp, who also played his position and is a little bit more hands-on with the safeties. Schumann, who is, calling the defense. And then you got Fran Brown, who's a defensive backs coach as well. All those personalities mesh together very well. And I think it's something that has made this, we heard Kirby talk about it early in the season. This is one of his best staffs assembled. And I think that's part of the reason why all those personalities meshing together.
Figure it out for
Wes?
now. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I thought we lost you there. I thought you got taken out.
Yeah, my camera just got sniped. I don't really know what happened. It just blacked out, so I'm on backup. We got a question from Zane O'Brien asking if Ladd is 100% back, and Jake Rowe, you had a report on that earlier this week.
Well, first of all, shout out to Zane O'Brien. I've known Zane O'Brien since he was a very small child. Good dude. His dad, Joey, rest in peace, used to go to Georgia games with us all the time. The man, the absolute man.
I thought he was wearing a Florida hat in his picture there, but I zoomed in.
No, that's not. He played a little college ball, I believe, back in the day. He's got a twin brother.
Maybe a Presbyterian blue hose. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe. That may be what it is. But, I think 100% back might be pushing it a little bit. We're talking about a guy who's coming off an injury. I mean, I think 85, 90% probably. I think he's going to have to play through a little bit of pain. Kirby was talking about tendonitis, and some pain. I do think it's a tolerance issue, and I do know that if Ladd McConkey can go, he's going to go, and we expect him to go. Our sources are saying he's expected to play. He's going to play. I just don't know how much. I don't know. That's just tough to say because you don't know how sore he's going to be throughout the week. Tendonitis, I've never had it. I don't think in my knee. I've had it in my elbow before. It sucks. It just kind of lingers around. It's hard to get rid of. So I would be shocked if he doesn't play 2 dozen snaps against Ohio State. But I don't know if we're again this season going to see the same Ladd that maybe we saw there in the first half of the season. He's dinged up, and it's going to be probably well into the offseason before he's back to 100%.
So the way our week's going to go, you guys will get to see a little bit of practice tomorrow. I know you'll have a quick recap of that, and then we'll get to see practice again on Thursday. So the next 2 times that we are kind of live doing these shows, I think we'll primarily be looking at what Georgia's done that day. So I think tonight is a good opportunity to kind of look at this game from the schematic standpoint and look at the implications of Ladd McConkey not being in the game and what it will mean for Ohio State's defense. Presuming that A.D. Mitchell is back, is it as simple to say that, okay, you lose Ladd, you get A.D.? I know they do different things on the field, obviously, but the timing of that, while it's not perfect, you want both of them at 100%. But for A.D. Mitchell to be able to step up this week and maybe be closer to 100% than Ladd is, that's you got to take what you can get. That's pretty lucky for Georgia.
Yeah, I think that if you've got to get a limited Ladd McConkey or maybe I mean, I guess if there's a setback and you have to be without him, you would definitely love to have AD in there, for sure. And it was something that I think Georgia's going to have them both. And time will tell, just how effective Ladd will be. I think he, from what I understand, he looked pretty good in yesterday's practice. I don't know how many reps he got, but he looked pretty good with what he did from what I've heard. So haven't heard anything out of today's practice. We'll get to see it a little bit tomorrow, but it's a pain tolerance deal. Ladd's got a, big one of those, big pain tolerance. So we'll see how he can deal with all that. But having him and AD on the field at the same time is big. And another guy that I think might end up getting overlooked in this game, because I did some asking around about him over the last 24 hours, is Kearis Jackson, because I'm told that he was kind of dealing with some minor nicks and bruises throughout the year. A couple 2 or 3 weeks has allowed him to heal up a little bit. Don't be surprised if he makes a few plays out of the slot, because I also thought there was a portion there kind of in the middle to second half portion of the season where he was starting to make a play here and a play there and kind of affect games a little more.
How about that Mississippi State game? He had 2 unbelievable catches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll add on Ladd while we're on the topic is this is a guy that hasn't really been 100% all season. I mean, Kirby has told us, almost every time that he gets brought up, he says, hey, this is a kid who doesn't practice on Monday, Tuesday, is limited on Wednesday, Thursday, and we've really got to hold him back, put the reins on him. So how is even potentially less practice going to affect him? How is the time off going to help him feel better from where he was in obviously leaving that LSU game? Only time will tell. I mean, we'll like you said, we'll get a better idea of all that, over the next couple of days, getting to see a little bit of practice for the first time since August, September, first time since you joined us, Jake.
Yeah, I haven't seen practice all season, so I'm excited to get out there and do it, take a few
photos. Please restrain yourself when you're out there, Jake.
I'm good, man.
We don't need DawgsHQ getting a bad rap for you out there yelling and hollering. I'm in practice again, damn it.
It's the first time I've seen practice since the Orange Bowl last year when I went and looked through the fence and got chased by the fuzz.
Can you rehash that for everyone that isn't initiated?
I did that out of anger. It was a bait and switch on the part of the Orange Bowl, and I was very upset by it. They got us down there to the Le Meridian in Dania Beach and got us checked into our hotels and got us ready to go watch practice, because that was the only reason to go down, was the 2 15-minute practice viewing sessions, because everything had gotten switched to Zoom because of the surge of the Omicron variant. Well, about hour and a half before we were supposed to go see practice, I had already gone to Best Buy that morning to pick up a memory card for the camera so we could shoot some photos. They call it off. They say, no, none of you are going to get to watch practice here at the College Football Playoff. And I was pretty angry. So we decided we were going to stake out the team hotel.
Enjoy your hotel rooms.
Yeah, right.
And this was the Orange Bowl that did this.
It was the Orange Bowl. This is the Orange Bowl. And listen, that Le Meridian hotel was nice. The room was cool. There were raccoons out by the pool at night. It was pretty crazy. I mean, who knows if they were rabid or not? I didn't try them up. But so we decided to go stake out the team hotel. We're going to catch them coming back from practice, right? The whole thing was George Pickens and JT Daniels.
Jonathan
and looking back, we're talking about a backup quarterback and a receiver that was limited, rejoining the team. But it was
Pickens did have a good highlight from that game, though, when he shoved that dude on his tail.
Yeah, he did. So, shortening up a long story, we ended up staking out for a while, or on the way to stake out the hotel, we stopped where the practice site was going to be. And I got out of the car and just kind of walked parallel down the road, across the street, looked through, and I'm sitting there looking through the fence, watching practice for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden the security guard sticks his head out, and I kind of see him looking around the corner. I'm like, oh, man, this is a problem. So I'm
about to get booted from the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, I'm about to get my credential yanked. And he ducked back inside, I think, to get somebody else. And, I when I tell my kids about this one day, I'm going to tell them I hood slid like Bo Duke. I tell them I just slid across the hood, but I didn't really do that. And we got back in the car, myself, Palmer, Seth Emerson, Anthony Dasher, and we rode on up to the team hotel and staked it out for a little while. Found out the team wasn't coming until later, and we ended up finding out that George Pickens and JT Daniels came in on a private flight that evening, because George Pickens revealed it on his Instagram. Otherwise,
let's not forget your iguana chase, though.
Yeah, whatever. That's child's play. I didn't catch the iguana. It doesn't matter.
I thought you were talking about the guy getting kicked off the sideline at Notre Dame. But
yeah, well,
hey.
Yeah, I can't speak those words.
So I don't think people realize this, but reporters and people with credentials and badges, their greatest rivals at any given game isn't necessarily, the other team that they don't cover, or that team's press corps, their beat reporters. It's not like Anchorman, where it's like the Channel 4 news team. And
boy, that would be fun.
Brandish some weapons. It depends, maybe with some of the reporters. But
I
the
would love to
greatest
karate chop Brandon Adams in the neck.
the greatest rival is the security team
I love that guy.
because they don't know
We might
that you
both
have a
like
job to do, and they have a job to do too, and they'll remind you. But that's our greatest rival at any of these things, because if you move the wrong direction, there's no nuance. There's no like, hey man, I'm not out here trying to sneak on the field. But I'm wondering how long it's going to take until you see that Sports Center highlight where some guy's running out on the field getting chased by security, and it's Jake Rowe. It's not some hooligan from the stands. It's like a reporter trying to get the scoop that he's not supposed to be on the field for.
We had a situation like that at the SEC championship game, didn't we? Similar. I think one of us had to kind of get down and be somewhere we weren't supposed to be.
Down by
I don't know.
You can't see what net guy's doing.
I think it was Jake Roos.
Jake Roos was in the net. He was in the barrel.
Yeah, he was hiding out.
Jake Roos has joined the chat. Welcome in, sliding in like Chris Collinsworth here. I've been asked I have one family member. I'm not going to reveal his identity. Every time I see him at a gathering, he's asking me about the transfer portal. So let's just go ahead and nip this in the bud. Is Georgia looking for any running back additions in the transfer portal from any schools at all? Or do y'all feel like the class is done until Deuce Robinson announces in February?
No,
I think there's some communication with Marshawn Lloyd. I wouldn't say that Georgia is I wouldn't say that they're like ahead of anybody or pushing extremely hard, but I think there's a chance there. I don't think it's a great one, but I think there's a chance there. And I think Georgia will eventually look into the transfer portal for a running back if it needs to. We don't know what the numbers are going to say. You know, I mean, Kendall Milton could come back for his senior year. Dejon Edwards could come back for his senior year. You got Branson Robinson, Andrew Paul, signed Roderick Robinson. Maybe they go out and get another Robinson running back. Just meet the Robinsons. We just do a whole running back thing. Just a great one. But I mean, I think that they probably will, and I think they'll go after. I think they'll go after a 5-technique defensive end type. You know, I think if you know, I'm just throwing out a couple names here because these guys fit it. And there's one team, Texas A&M, that's kind of loaded with them. They've got Shamar Stewart, they've got LT Overton, they've got another kid, Shamar something else, Roos. I can't remember his name, but Georgia recruited him as well. But they've got him, and so they've got three guys right there, I think, that play kind of edge defensive end. If one of those guys were to enter the portal, I think Georgia would go after him.
Shamar Turner.
Yeah, just so you're aware, if you try to search the 12th man football roster for Texas A&M, that's not currently available, and I can understand why. There are a lot of moving pieces over there.
Oh yeah,
that's a 503 error message.
You have reached the end of the internet.
We don't have one of those. Check back later.
I think with the transfer portal, Georgia's position is they're going to continue to recruit, like Rose said. You know, if there were a quarterback they felt like could help them, maybe they look that way. A 5-technique, I think, would definitely be a welcomed addition. I know Jake put something on Twitter or maybe on the board about the guy coming from Wake Forest.
Rondell, I can't remember his last name. Rondell.
You know, the reality is they're going to keep this all rolling. You know, somebody asked about Smoke. Smoke Bowie, yeah, still definitely a consideration. So they're not turning anything off. As far as the transfer portal is concerned, if they feel like they can add a guy who's going to help them, I think they'll continue to do that in 2023. Deuce Robinson, probably the name that people need to be most focused on because that's probably the clearest cut guy that they're after. But beyond that, yeah, I still think the potential exists that they can get somebody else.
I want to point something else out too. One of the best defensive linemen, most successful defensive linemen in Georgia history, was not even on the radar at this point in his recruiting cycle, and that was Geno Atkins. I remember back in the day when Geno Atkins kind of burst on into the scene, I believe mid-January, and St. Thomas Aquinas, football powerhouse. I think Geno was around, you know, he's ended up listed as like 6'3", but he's like 6'1.5". And I think folks just his senior tape got out, and he was like, they were like, oh my God. And, you know, lo and behold, he becomes, you know, goes on to become like a 10-year Pro Bowler had a tremendous career at Georgia, was an all-SEC performer. There are guys that explode late in class. Lab McConkey did it in his class.
Exactly. I mean, it's even probably more prevalent now than it was then, because basically everybody's pushing reset and everybody's going back to, senior tapes they were considering, guys that were on boards before. There's a whole nother recruiting cycle that just began at the end of last Friday for 2023 guys, high school guys. So definitely don't write anything off.
By the way, a mysterious disappearance in the recruiting world, kids with grade issues. Never see that anymore.
Yeah. Boy, you don't really hear about that a lot these days.
Yeah, you don't hear about old Johnny boy's needs a B in algebra 3 to make
I think
this
it's that
thing.
I think it's that new math that all the parents that I talk to really love. That's just got these kids on track and they don't have any other issues. It just clicks.
Yeah, it's got to be it.
Guys, let's take a quick break in the action to shout out our guys at Breaking Tea. And, we're going into a really critical stretch for Georgia. And you don't want to be the person that is still wearing that old T-shirt that you've been wearing to every single tailgate, every single watch party. Get you something that's a little bit fresher that will make people stop and say, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And you can say, "Well, I was watching Georgia show, DawgsHQ, and they told me about this cool site, Breaking Tea. Here's a link. Check it out." And you can get a shirt with the mailman on it. A lot of them, actually. Brock Bowers, he's still around for another year. Darnell Washington, probably not, but you can always wear them. Same with Christopher Smith. So check out the link in this show's episode description. Get yourself a Breaking Tea. Let's take a look at Ohio State, guys. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I think the rest of the week we'll be focusing a lot on what we hear from Georgia. Y'all have had an opportunity to hear from Ryan Day now and hear from Ohio State's offensive coordinator. From the flip side of things, what's the vibe you're getting from the Buckeyes and how you think they're going to attack Georgia, the mentality they're entering this game with?
Palmer.
That's me.
Palmer, wake up, man.
You're the one under the Ohio State logo, so you might as well.
Yeah, you're an Ohio State reporter, man.
Noted Ohio State fan, Palmer Thoms.
Ohio State expert, Palmer Thoms.
Yeah, that's my title. I mean, I think if you have to attack them with your wide receivers. You have to attack. I mean, if there's one weakness of this Georgia defense, it's not the run defense. It's not that front seven. It's not Jalen Carter. It's in the secondary. And I don't know that it's a weakness. It's more a vulnerability. That's where Georgia has shown that they could be susceptible to being beat. And that's where Ohio State has made its money all year long. I mean, you've got a rotation of running backs that haven't been able to stay healthy. If you're Ohio State, how can you rely on any of those guys? I think that they're good, but I think that they're going to try. We were talking with Spencer Holbrook, from Letterman Row earlier today, and we were talking about how trying to run to set up the pass against Georgia, run to set up anything for success is not a plan for success. Well, that's not Ohio State's plan. They're going to try to hit you with the pass and CJ Stroud, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison, Julian Fleming, all those guys, Cade Stover, who we heard from, tight end. All those
serious
guys,
cat, by the way, Cade Stover, very serious cat. Boy.
Yeah.
He was getting beat up in our comment section.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Was he? I hadn't seen it.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
they're saying that he looks scared.
He sounded
scary.
like Lane. I don't know if you guys remember when Lane Kiffin got hired as the Raiders head coach.
Yeah,
and he was talking almost angry, robotically, like he said something about we will practice so hard.
Brent Key
that
Brent Key.
Yeah, we will just like that. It was like, we will practice so hard that the games will be easy. And it was like kind of in that, it was really weird. And that's Cade Stover came across that way.
I was thinking about Tommy
maybe
Tommy
Georgia's in trouble.
Eichenberg.
Yeah,
Is the guy that everyone said looks scared. Yeah, Cade Stover looks like
He's tatted up.
He would slap your mom.
He's got some right arm tattooage there. Yeah, he does look like he'd kind of just walk through the party and just like backhand all of the moms and dads, just tear them all up. But that was a serious cat, dude. He had me worried a little bit. Georgia may be in trouble if that cat's got anything to do with it.
He looks like he can crush some Bud Light.
Look at him, man. This is like if Justin Timberlake grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. And actually
over under 2.5 people he has headbutted and knocked unconscious.
Oh my gosh,
misdemeanors! But
he's won every bar fight he's ever been in. Yeah, so Georgia needs to watch out for Cade Stover. That's what we.
Oh God, he turned his head right as you were talking about it. Kind of freaked me out.
He can hear me. He can hear us. Look, he can hear us talking about him. Caleb Hurt You says Chris Smith is going to light up Stover. So
Stovers.
Hey, Chris Smith's going to be integral in this game. There's no question about it. And you got to feel good about that, right? I mean, some senior leadership back there, a guy who's been around this program, heart and soul of the defense. You're in a good position in a passing game to have him back there.
These comments are elite tonight. Do a side by side with Cade and Darnell. Dude looks like a Tic Tac.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with Cade. You don't want to mess with Cade too much. You'll have to deal with Uncle Russell. So,
when we look at the flip side of things, you look at Georgia's offense.
Russell Stover.
You guys want to find every stat. When I say you guys, I mean Ohio State people. Want to find every stat that justifies Ohio State's defense and props them up. But, Jake, you've been calling these guys out even since before I think we knew Georgia was going to play Ohio State. Do you still feel like a lot of these stats they have defensively, specifically their pass defense, I think is in for a long day against Georgia? Maybe Georgia's defense is in for a long day against Ohio State.
I don't think Ohio State's that good. I don't think they're very good on defense. I think they've kind of beefed up their numbers this year against really bad offenses. Guys, I mean, they've played 4 of the worst offenses in college football this year. Not 1 or 2, 4. And I think they've played over half of their schedule was ranked outside of the top 80 or 90 in yards per play this year nationally. I mean, but at the same time, I think here's what you got to consider. And it's so simplistic and there's just no way of really having a bearing on it is Georgia just got to play well. And that's, it's so important, I think, to Georgia because it's a zero variable type situation. Because, I mean, if Georgia goes out, Georgia plays its best game, it just doesn't, nothing else matters. Not one other thing that anybody else does matters. But you can't predict that. And when you're talking about Ohio State or Michigan, if you're not that top dog, if you're not that team that's like, hey, my A+ game is going to take over anybody else's A+ game, then if you're not that team, then all of a sudden it's not as much of a talking point anymore. And you kind of get into this situation where they need this to go right, or they have to do this, or they have to accomplish this many rushing yards. And so more variables come into play. And Georgia just has that one lane of Georgia's best, and it leads directly to another trophy and celebration Saturday in Sanford Stadium. But you don't know if you're going to get that. You did at a very high clip. You have at a very high clip over the last 2 years. But will we see it on Saturday?
I'm curious, Ro, and I mean you specifically, but I'm putting this out to the group. I feel like Georgia has played its best against the teams it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Georgia has played to its level of competition in a very strong way this year. So that's come back to bite them in years past. But in this instance, Georgia, the teams that were supposed to give them trouble, right? Tennessee was supposed to be this nail-biting game, everybody wringing their hands. And they came out and I mean, basically just stifle that dynamic offense under Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Josh Heupel, everything they could throw at them. I feel like that's
dumb and dumbered them right there.
I feel like that has to give people I would say a glimmer of hope. And I think that that's probably one of the best things that you have going for you going into this game. If you are Georgia, is that in the big moments they've risen, And in the lesser moments, maybe they played down a little bit.
Well, we heard a little bit of the team's mentality from Kyrus Jackson, and encourage y'all to go watch that when you're done watching us flap our gums here and share our thoughts on the game. But really the quote of this down period since the SEC championship for me was Kyrus saying that Georgia's worked harder between this year's SEC championship and the postseason than it did last year. And anyone who's heard from any of Georgia's players about that period last year, you know, they indicated it was in some instances harder than fall camp because they just bolted back down on conditioning and they worked harder because of that loss to Bama. Georgia really has worked harder and they get as much out of it, then yeah, no one really stands a chance against them in this postseason.
E-word, man, execution. Georgia takes care of the football and executes. It's a really good team. And the one thing I do keep going back to, and it's just a tough question to answer, is, all right, if Ohio State is such a tough matchup for a team like Georgia, and I'm not saying they're not, I think they match up just as well as anybody could, why do they struggle with Michigan? Like, why is Michigan kind of, you know, getting to them a little bit? Because Georgia, I think a lot of people would say that Georgia's kind of maybe a rung higher on that same, roster composition and style ladder.
Yeah, they say Michigan is Georgia light.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that. I try not to be super, try not to come across disrespectful. I don't want, like, Jim Harbaugh to be scrolling through some, YouTube, and these two teams end up in the, whatever, and I got to confront this dude in LA or something. Me and Jim Harbaugh got to go at it.
Jim Harbaugh doesn't do Twitter, buddy.
What's that?
He doesn't do Twitter. He's drinking. He's too busy drinking milk.
He's drinking milk and watching actual film.
Avoiding chicken. It's a nervous animal.
I think Jim Harbaugh still uses an overhead projector, like in class when you'd slide the laminated thing on there and write on it with like a vis-a-vis. I think that's how he still breaks down film. We've totally lost Palmer now.
Makes a mistake, licks his thumb, puts it on there.
Yeah.
Sorry guys. That's supposed to be a 9 route.
Of the teams, though, I do feel like Ohio State was probably the toughest draw, personally.
Well, yeah,
100%.
And it's a wounded team. It's a wounded team. That's important too. But I just think Georgia, if Michigan matches up so well, how the hell does Georgia not match up very well? Where are we going there? So, I mean, I don't know. I said it last show, and I'll continue to say it up until game time. If Jim Knowles did Jim Knowles feel like he had to load the box against Michigan and put his secondary at risk because that's what he had to do to stop the run? Or did he just think it wouldn't hurt him? Because one way or the other, I feel like it's just a problem. It's just, either you've got a guy who had a bad game plan, which I guess that happens, and maybe you don't have a second bad game plan, or you had a guy that really felt like he knew his personnel and knew that it couldn't handle the onslaught of Michigan's run game, even without Blake Corum, and he put his secondary in a bind and gave up a ton of big plays and yardage to a team that's not built to put those on you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the devil's advocate view is you could say the same thing about Georgia last year. How could Georgia possibly come out of that Alabama game and maybe not get past Michigan, but have a chance to win?
No, there was plenty of that too, Wes. There was plenty of that too.
I just don't know that. I know for a fact. I mean, Ohio State hasn't seen Darnell Washington, hasn't seen Brock Bowers. If you can't stop Michigan's running game, Georgia doesn't really start out running it down your throat, but by the third and fourth quarter, when they're up 10, 13, 17 points, it turns into 28, 30 points really quick. So it seems like a really tough matchup when you look at Georgia's offense against Ohio State's defense.
Yeah, and Ohio State, I think the best bet that they have, right, is to try to score first, score often, and score fast. If their best bet is to just run this thing up as fast as they can, because I don't think they want to get into a game of ball control. Georgia's going to take the edge there every time. Like Rose said, I don't think much of the Ohio State defense, I mean, there's some good players over there, certainly, but there have been instances where they've been exposed. I don't think it's a situation where, like I said, to me, the explosive offense is what Ohio State has to rely on, and Georgia has a defense that can nullify, and if not nullify, at least offset to some degree.
Roos, what a missed opportunity there. Why not first frequently fast? Go with all the Fs.
Triple F.
Alliteration.
I'll leave the alliteration to you, even though I'm the former English teacher.
Former English teacher. Last thing I want to get on before we do our dog stocks and wrap up. There's a lot more. This came from the rest of the week and on our YouTube channel. Jake Rowe. Sorry. Dang it. Back-to-back shows I'd done this.
Never mind. Okay.
Back-to-back. It's because I listened to Buck Bellew today.
You could say less handsome, Jake. That would work.
Jake Rowe, explain to us like we're 5.
More boldness.
Explain to us like we're 5 how Ohio State's offense is different from Tennessee's. That's the comparison that I think a lot of just normal, easygoing observers of the sport want to make, because these offenses are so high flying and elite. But what sets them apart from a Georgia defensive game plan standpoint?
I think that, Tennessee's offense is predicated on space, play action. They want to make you declare whether you're covering or whether you're defending the run. And they do that with those super wide splits. And then they pop runs, use play action to take shots, and they use pace to do that. Well, Ohio State's going to slow it down a little bit more. They use pace as a tool, not as an overarching philosophy. That's part of it. And also, they're just more multiple offensively. I think they've got some of the Tennessee elements in their offense. Chip Kelly, that whole let's get people out of the box and then hit people with quick hitting runs. That's something I don't know that they'll try against Georgia, but that's something they kind of lean on. Ohio State does like to run the football. I mean, if that run game didn't kick in with Maya and Williams, who should be healthy for this game, they have a lot of trouble in that Notre Dame game. So I mean, there are some similarities just in terms of kind of what they want to do to you. They just go about it in different ways. And Georgia, Glenn Schumann had a really good comment on this today too. He talked about defending different quarterbacks. He's like, listen, man, we don't defend Hendon Hooker the same way that we defend. I can't remember who he said.
Bo Nix.
What did he say?
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix, right? And they don't defend Spencer Rattler the same way they defend Will Levis. And if you look, it took me a minute, right? If you throw those 4 in there and you start talking about Will Rogers, who was the SEC's leading passer, and you look at some other guys. I mean, Georgia faced some pretty good quarterbacks this year, and it fared really well against them. C.J. Stroud may be the best that they'll have had a chance to face, but I think they'll come in there with a good plan and an opportunity to just really add to the resume and for this defense to kind of have an opportunity to put itself up there with last year's defense. And I think Georgia has a chance to do that against Ohio State. I don't see this offense as completely unstoppable. I don't think this is necessarily a high-scoring game.
One thing I'll add, just having watched both Tennessee and because for over the time since the Heisman, watched the Tennessee-Georgia game and the Ohio State-Michigan game back-to-back because I did want to go look at those two offenses because, like you said, it's the two that we've seen compared the most. And to me, and I could be wrong in this, but to me, it felt like the way that Tennessee attacks you is you saw vertical routes. You saw them getting downfield in a hurry. Jalen Hyatt running past guys, Cedric Tillman running past guys. You don't necessarily see that as much with Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka. You see more of a developed, fuller route tree, in my opinion. I mean, the contested catches that Marvin Harrison makes, that's what separates him. It's not straight line speed. It's not, his ability
it's whatever
to
you throw at
past guys. Exactly. He catches whatever you throw at him. He doesn't have to be wide open like a Jalen Hyatt does.
I want to touch on this question that we got here. I really want Ro to touch on it, to be honest with you. Zane O'Brien asked, how confident are you guys in our DBs with Ohio State's wide receivers? Will the deep ball be an issue? And I feel like a lot of people this goes back to something that I've seen Jake debate with a lot of people on Twitter. I feel like a lot of people are a little bit nervous about Keely Ringo. And I think that's undeservedly so, given the game breakdowns that Jake's done and what we've seen. But I am curious on your thoughts on that, bro.
I mean, I don't think Ohio State, and I was talking to Spencer from over at 11 Warriors, our Ohio State guy over there today.
Letterman Row.
Letterman Row, sorry, not 11 Warriors. Jesus Christ, I probably just probably.
Yeah, we're on their blacklist now.
Oh boy, now we're getting an email tomorrow.
I'm gonna get fired.
It's live. It's live. YouTube, man. Live. This stuff happens when we go live.
I'm gonna get canned. All right, so looking at their receiving core, I look at last year's team. Tough matchup for Georgia. Last year's team, I completely believe that. I mean, because I feel like Ohio State. There's a reason that Jamison Williams transferred from Ohio State to Alabama, because Ohio State had like 3 Jamison Williams: Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those guys were take the top off the defense, run right by you, make you look slow type players. Emeka Ibuka and Marvin Harrison are really, really dangerous in their own right. Really, really good looking. Sorry, that was little Derek Zoolander. They were really, really good players.
Ridiculously.
Ridiculously good looking. They're good players, but they're contested catch guys. I wouldn't call them possession guys, because they do stretch the field. They do get downfield. And in some ways they're more dangerous, because you can get draped all over them and they're still going to catch the ball. But they're not the kind of guys, I don't think, that are just going to fly right by the defensive backs and make big plays. Georgia's going to run some man under 2 and have Malachi Starks and Chris Smith at the top. And listen, you go back to that Tennessee game, to LSU game. I know folks were like blaming it all on Keely Ringo. Guys, Malachi Starks had a freshman game that game. He gave up at the very least 250 yards receiving. And that's just what happened to him. It was not on Keely Ringo, who was in trail technique all of those plays. Can he play better? Yeah, I think the entire Georgia defense can play better. I thought Georgia's defense kind of, had some lapses. Glenn Schumann talked about that today. It's never just one thing when you play a half of football that bad. I thought it was interesting how he made it sound like it was almost embarrassing, like he'd never tell his kids about it. That might be a good thing for Georgia fans, because, if he's that frustrated by it, they've probably had it hammered home. I feel like Georgia's pretty focused, and they know what's at stake. They know what it takes to kind of win this time of year. And, I think that the defense will be a lot more sound in terms of assignment.
I feel like Palmer just ate a handful of vitamins. I don't know. Oh, Snyder's pretzels. Wonderful. He's got an NIL deal with Core.
Snyder's isn't paying us a red cent to be on this show.
I want a NIL deal with Gorton's fish sticks. I've been tearing them up lately.
Hey, and this is in there too.
Ro's gonna be doing the show in a yellow jacket next week with the big
no
the
question.
slicker.
No question. Don't get the minced. Don't get the minced. Get the actual, fillets.
His wife's going to be standing off screen with a bucket of water. She's going to splash him like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
He's got a big fan. He got a box fan in the other way.
Get some different dipping sauces going on. A little malt vinegar. Oh God.
Fish and chips. All right, let's do some dog stocks. I'll say stock up on
fish sticks.
That's you. You got the fish sticks covered. I'm gonna say stock up on the Peach Bowl and Georgia being right up the road. I think that the ability for Georgia to get one practice in on Monday of this week in Athens. I know it's a little thing, but Kirby Smart's a details guy, and I think it probably flipped somewhat of a switch. Like, this is a game week. Y'all have already been doing this all year. Let's start the practice week here in Athens, then take the bus to Atlanta. And just make this feel like as normal of a week as possible at the start of the week anyway, because there's a lot of bowl week. You can call them distractions, but they're traditions that you got to do too. So I like that. I like that little detail. I like that little nugget that helps Georgia kind of get locked in to playing just another game, even though it's a college football playoff game.
Clashing styles here, Wes. Hold on. You brought up something that's very important. Clashing styles here. So something I noticed today, and it just reminded me, Kevin Wilson's talking about Ohio State's game plan today, right? And he's talking about we've gone through one time, we've probably gone through a second time, we're about to go through it a third time, our game plan for Georgia. It got me thinking because Georgia is adamant about not doing it that way. Kirby Smart is adamant about not preparing for the team. They'll get a little bit of a head start during the bye week for Florida. Start maybe like Thursday, maybe, a little bit late in Wednesday's practice or something, but very slowly work their way into it. The over preparing for an opponent, and I think he was asked about it last year, the year before, and he talked about how kids get bored with the game plan and they get bored doing the same thing over and over again. And he finds that it kind of zaps energy a little bit. Contrasting styles here. Evidently Ohio State has put in the game plan a while back and the players are about to get their third rendition of it. Whereas Georgia is like, hey, we'll keep things as normal as possible. Maybe take a little bit of extra time out for a little extra prep, but as normal as possible, creature of habit. I'm interested to see kind of what we see there. Does one team look a little bit more prepared? Does one team look a little bit more, juiced? Does one team a little over prepared and a little bit paralysis by analysis? I don't know. But I just thought that those are two very different philosophies on how to go, about the extra time to prepare.
Yeah, it's big.
Which is interesting because every time we've heard from Ryan Day, he's talked about there's 3 phases to their prep. And one of them was a fundamental phase. I can't remember what the second one was.
I got
and
it.
then the last one was like the game week phase. And so I guess maybe
somebody's lying.
It was fundamental phase,
maybe
game plan phase, go down there and beat the Bulldogs phase.
I swear to God, one of these days I want to do this show, and I just want to try to make Jake Roos laugh the whole time.
Well, you're doing a great job. Was that your stock, though? I don't know. Was that?
No, I was just commenting on Wes's stock.
All right. I'm going to do my stock now, and I'm going to say stock down on my concern with Georgia winning over Ohio State. I think.
Wow.
I feel confident in that. I'll be honest with you. I think that they're in a good position. And the real thing that's driven me to that, not only through watching and seeing and feeling it out, thinking through the whole matchup, but my dad, a huge Ohio State fan. He's from Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, we should have had him on.
Well,
Chuck.
I am at his house. So. But spending time with him and a lot of my family members, big Ohio State fans, a lot of Ohio people, and they're all very confident that Ohio State can beat Georgia. They're not very confident that Ohio State will beat Georgia. And I think that, like I said, I've kind of thought through a lot of the scenarios along the way, and I convinced myself that yes, Georgia should be in a good position. To hear it from the other side, though, and to hear it from people who've kept up with that team and watched it consistently, I think that, that makes me feel a little bit better about it. So I'm going to say stock down on my word.
There you go. Palmer, stock up on pretzels.
Yes. Stock up on the media hospitality suite and Chick-fil-A and the taco bar today.
I had about 14 chicken minis this morning.
Stock down also on Atlanta Airport. The water main broke, and the Chick-fil-A.
They didn't drip their faucets.
The Chick-fil-A was closed.
They didn't cover up their faucet.
In the Delta Sky Club, they did not drip their faucets.
Oh, man.
Jake.
Yeah,
Jake
they better
Rowe,
fix it. If Georgia wins this game, they need to have that fixed by Jan 5.
I'm going to go stock up on the Peach Bowl for the extracurricular activities. Obviously, football is important this week. Kirby has talked about how, Wes, you mentioned the bowl traditions and everything that goes on around the game. I think that if you look at what the Peach Bowl has done, they've got a really interesting setup, and you've got some unique things that you can do in Atlanta. You can host events at the College Football Hall of Fame, which is perfect for the bowl game and perfect for this college football playoff stage. They had a trivia night last night, and as you can see on your screen now, for those watching on YouTube, they went to the hospital today. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, they went and visited one of the hospitals. And so, stock up on Kirby and the team. Obviously, partaking in the events would be a bad look if they didn't. But I think it is important for them. I think it's important for them to.
We're gonna sit this one out.
Yeah, that would not be a good look. That would be big stock down. But stock up for them being able to escape the focus on football for a little while to see some things that are bigger, more important to football. And as the player said, it offers them a bonding opportunity. Time to spend with their teammates, not in the locker room, not on the football field. They get to do some really cool things, and I think that's an important part of the bowl process that often gets overlooked when people just focus on opt-outs and the football side of things.
One meat unit had me laughing over there with his state power rankings as well. Ohio is the most depressing state in the union. Maybe Indiana, but Ohio number 2.
Let me tell you something, buddy. Let me tell you something, dude. The stuff that was written about Cleveland, Ohio, when LeBron James left for Miami is some of the funniest things you will ever read on the internet. I can still think about it, and it makes me. I don't even know. I have a hard time holding it together. It's so funny. I'm going to stock up on family. I got a good one. All right, got the best one there is. No offense to anybody else, but I'm saying it because Jamon Dumas-Johnson had a term today that I loved, and I had to write a story about it. He said Georgia's defense plays family ball, and what he meant by that was they don't care about stats, they don't care about who's got more sacks or tackles for a loss. They play together, they play for each other. That's all well and good, and that's beautiful, and that's touching, and I'm sure there are people that love Georgia football, and that makes the hair stand up on your arm, okay? But I got a chance to talk to Will Muschamp about it, and I said, hey, what does family ball mean to you? And I thought this was what was more important. Will Muschamp said we coach them hard, and they take that coaching. And you don't do that unless you've got that kind of connected family dynamic. And I tell you what, man, I keep going back to it, and I've said this before on this very show, and it really I don't know, it just keeps sticking with me. And it's how I look at this team. I remember Georgia the first time Kirby's talked about connection in the skull sessions, and I was like, oh no, here we go. This is it's not a gimmick, but it's another kind of off-season theme.
It's the bumper sticker T-shirt moment.
Yeah, right. Dang, man, it's worked. It has worked. I mean, I think that I believe, and I don't know if Kirby can keep it going for 2, 3, 4, 5. Georgia's season has been a massive success thus far. Incredible national title defense. I think they're going to win it all again. Okay. But I don't think it's a given. I don't think it's none of this, Ohio State's not any good and Georgia's just going to run away with it. But I think
I expect it to be a close game, but I'm with you, Jake. I expect them to win it all.
And I think no matter what, it's been an incredible defense thus far. And I think connections behind it. And if Kirby can keep it going for 3, 4, 5 more years, that's incredible. But that's been the driving force. And Will Muschamp kind of drove home to me kind of the connection aspect between players and coaches there and the whole family thing. In that, listen, if you're going to go after them and you're going to rip them like Kirby Smart was ripping Keely Ringo in that leaked video from Tennessee fans, they better know you love them, because if they don't, you'll lose them. And Georgia's done a good job of keeping them around. Georgia's done a really good job of getting those guys to play at a high level. And there's no reason to expect that to stop now.
Yep.
Cheers to family.
Oh, okay.
Family.
Palmer, I need to see an ID.
Well, Palmer's just got every endorsement deal possible. He's just anybody who'll have it. He wants it.
No money to show for it though.
He's just hoarding it all for himself, just sitting on it like a dragon.
He's about to go to the Cheetah Club and make it rain.
Smog. I do miss
the Cheetah Club?
No, I miss
Palmer's gonna be scooping up those ticket stubs. Get you in at the discounted rate.
Saying smog, I'll be honest with you.
What's that?
I miss Vern Lundquist saying smog when he had to do the read over for the Lord of the Rings. The
oh yeah, big Tolkien guy, Vern Lundquist. And Gary, Frodo's journey represents mankind's struggle with greed.
What's
guys,
Britney Spears doing with her life?
Oh,
oh, we got a cameo from Dog Nation. Palmer needs to hop up and fight Connor now. That's how that goes.
No, we won't fight Connor. Connor's being nice.
I'm bombing BA's video after the Ohio State game. It's official now. I'm
They
bombing.
better get ready.
I mean, you did say you wanted to throat slash him, so.
Yeah, I know. I did not say that. I said I wanted to karate chop him in his neck. I don't want to cut that man's hair off. That man's got beautiful pipes. I love Brandon Adams.
Man, that would be a sad day if we had to watch Jake Rowe fight BA.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it for
lose
right
We might make Dog Nation daily this week.
Well, whenever Georgia's season ends, that's what we're gonna have to start doing. We're just gonna have to start fighting all of our rivals, all of our competition.
When March Madness comes around, we'll just create a bracket of who would win in a fight.
I did ask on our board what people would want for Christmas other than a Georgia national championship. You weren't allowed to say that. And we did get one Georgia basketball makes March Madness, and that was going to be mine. So
they got a chance for a quote unquote historic win if they beat Ryder tomorrow night.
Is that like one guy? They're just playing against Ryder.
Yeah,
J.R. Ryder. He's a little past his prime. He can't dunk under his leg anymore, but they're going after him tomorrow night.
If they beat Ryder, they have 10 wins on the season, and they will be one of 4 teams in program history to have 10 wins before January.
Okay, there you go. Palmer sneaking some hoops in to the Peach Bowl show. Appreciate that. Appreciate y'all. We'll be back a couple times later this week. Just keep it locked into DawgsHQ.com and the YouTube channel. Anytime a Georgia player or assistant speaks, it's going up on this YouTube channel. You can listen and read about our reactions to what those guys had to say. We're doing this show on Tuesday night. So tomorrow we'll get to hear from Todd Monken, the man himself, and a select group of Georgia offensive players too. So exciting stuff ahead. And then the big media day on Thursday, which is just a free-for-all. It's not quite as crazy as the Super Bowl, but it is as exciting, I think, for us because we get to talk to guys that we never, ever have permission to talk to. So
who's the guy y'all are most excited to talk to? Wes, Jake, I know you both of y'all will be there.
Britt Thorson.
I think Malachi Starks will be very interesting.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Rylan Goody.
Why is that so
I feel
funny?
like I know him so well on already. I just felt like I just spit out a name.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really want to talk to Gunnar Stockton. As uninteresting as I've known Rabun County kids to be at times, Charlie Warner back in the day. Charlie was, but I tell you what, Charlie got really good at media by the time he was done. When they made him put on a shirt to talk to us, that was
I've never felt closer to a kid in high school hitting me than I did when I was interviewing Charlie Warner.
Charlie Warner did not want that recruiting smoke, dude.
It was 2.5 minutes of the longest of my life, no question about it. It was horrible. He
was on incognito mode his entire college career.
Gunnar Stockton, though, for me, I would like to talk to Carson Beck as well. I like talking to quarterbacks. I like hearing kind of what they have to say. I think it goes back to God bless him, it hadn't worked out for him, but DeJuan Mathis. I sat down with him after his first year at Georgia. He had that brain, had that cyst removed and everything. And man, I spent 5 minutes with him, and it was such a good time. He had such good insight and such a good attitude. I really hated that it didn't work out for him at Georgia, but I really kind of developed a love and respect for that kid just on how he kind of handled some questions there. And, I always, since then, I think I just like talking to quarterbacks and finding out kind of the pressures and everything that they deal with, because it's not easy.
We'll hear from all of them, and you can listen to them all right here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Appreciate y'all locking it in. Check out our premium subscription, still $10 a month right now until Georgia kicks off its 2023 season, potentially as defending back-to-back national champs. We shall see. Until the next time we talk, have a great evening. Peace.
Get rich or die trying.